The room was quiet. Too quiet. Donald Trump Jr. sat across from Tiger Woods in a place no cameras were supposed to reach. Between them, a name that hadn't been spoken aloud in years: Vanessa. Not Vanessa Trump, his ex-wife. Not the mother of his 5 children. This was someone else. Someone Tiger knew. Someone the tabloids missed. And now, in this private space, with no lawyers, no PR teams, no scripts, just 2 men who'd both lived under the weight of legacy, scandal, and betrayal, the truth was finally going to come out. Don's jaw was tight. Tiger's eyes were somewhere else, like he was calculating every word before it left his mouth. There was no yelling. No drama. Just the kind of tension that makes your chest feel heavy. Because this wasn't about headlines. It wasn't about revenge. It was about something far more dangerous: closure. The kind that forces you to admit what you've been running from. And in that moment, before either of them said a word, you could feel it. One of them was about to break. The question was, who would crack first? If you've ever felt caught between loyalty and truth, leave a word below. Let's walk through this together. And hit that subscribe button, because stories like this don't get told everywhere. Tiger Woods doesn't do confrontations. Not anymore. After everything he's survived, the scandal in 2009, the DUI, the back surgeries, the fall from grace and the impossible climb back, he learned to keep his head down. Stay quiet. Let the clubs do the talking. But when Donald Trump Jr. reached out, it wasn't a friendly call. It wasn't about golf. And it wasn't casual. Don wanted answers. Real ones. And Tiger? He owed him that much. Here's what most people don't know. Vanessa Pergolizzi, yes, that Vanessa wasn't just a name in Don's past. She was a ghost that lingered in circles both men moved through. A woman with ties to South Florida's elite social scene, someone who knew the Trumps, someone who crossed paths with Tiger during a time when his life was unraveling. She wasn't famous. She wasn't an influencer. But she was there. In the background. In the whispers. And when Don's marriage to Vanessa Trump fell apart in 2018, her name came up again. Quietly. Carefully. Like a splinter you can't quite remove. Don had spent years trying to move on. He was with Kimberly Guilfoyle now. His kids were his anchor. His brand was stronger than ever. But some things don't stay buried. Especially when someone you respect, someone like Tiger, was allegedly involved in a moment that could have changed everything. So Don did what most people wouldn't. He reached out. Not through lawyers. Not through intermediaries. He called Tiger directly. And Tiger, to his credit, didn't dodge it. He agreed to meet. No cameras. No witnesses. Just a conversation that had been years in the making. The meeting happened in early 2025. A private estate in Palm Beach. Neutral ground. The kind of place where power players go to have conversations they can't have anywhere else. Tiger arrived first. He was calm, composed, the way he always is when the pressure's on. But those who know him say he was different that day. More guarded. Like he knew this wasn't just another business meeting. When Don walked in, there was no handshake. No small talk. Just a nod. A mutual acknowledgement that this was going to be uncomfortable. Don sat down, leaned back, and said something that cut through the silence like a knife. I need to know what really happened. Tiger didn't flinch. But his silence said everything. Because in moments like this, the absence of words is louder than any defense. Don wasn't angry. That's the part that caught Tiger off guard. He wasn't there to accuse. He wasn't there to destroy. He was there because he'd spent years wondering. Wondering if the version of events he'd been told was the truth. Wondering if the people around him had protected him from something he deserved to know. Wondering if Tiger, someone he'd known through family ties, through golf, through the tangled web of high-profile circles, had ever been part of the story he was never fully told. And Tiger? He knew this moment would come. Maybe not today. Maybe not this year. But eventually. Because the truth has a way of finding you. Even when you've buried it under wins, comebacks, and redemption arcs. He took a breath. And then, for the first time in years, he started talking. Tiger didn't deny knowing Vanessa. That would have been insulting. Don already knew they'd crossed paths. What he didn't know was how close. How often. And whether anything that happened between them had ever intersected with Don's life in ways that mattered. Tiger chose his words carefully. He explained that during 2017 and early 2018, right around the time Don's marriage was crumbling, Vanessa Trump was part of a circle Tiger was briefly involved with. Not romantically. Not scandalously. But socially. Events. Fundraisers. The kind of gatherings where everyone knows everyone, and secrets are currency. He admitted that during one of those events, Vanessa had mentioned Don. Not in a gossipy way. But in a way that suggested she knew more than she let on. She knew about the tension in his marriage. She knew about the rumors. And she made it clear, in her own subtle way, that if certain people wanted information about Don, about Vanessa Trump, about the dynamics inside that world, she could provide it. Tiger said he didn't take the bait. But he also didn't shut it down. And that's what haunted him. Because in the world they live in, silence is complicity. And by not saying anything, by not warning Don, by not cutting Vanessa off, he let the door stay open. And doors like that? They don't just close on their own. Don listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't explode. He just absorbed it. Because this was exactly what he feared. Not betrayal in the dramatic sense. But the quiet kind. The kind where people you trust don't lie to you, they just don't tell you the whole truth. When you realize someone could have warned you but didn't, it changes the math of every relationship. Drop a thought if you've ever been there. Tiger went further. He told Don about a specific night in February 2018. A charity gala in Miami. Vanessa Trump was there. So was Tiger. So were half a dozen people who'd later claimed they had no idea what was brewing behind the scenes. Tiger said he saw Vanessa talking to someone, a journalist, a fixer, he wasn't sure. But the conversation looked deliberate. Calculated. Like information was being exchanged. He didn't think much of it at the time. But weeks later, when stories about Don's divorce started leaking details that only insiders would know, Tiger put it together. And he felt sick. Because even if he wasn't directly involved, he was in the room. He was part of the ecosystem that allowed it to happen. And he never said a word. Don's expression didn't change. But something in his posture shifted. This wasn't new information. He'd suspected it for years. But hearing it confirmed, from someone like Tiger, made it real. Made it hurt in a different way. He leaned forward. Why didn't you tell me then? Tiger's answer was honest. Painfully so. Because I didn't think it was my place. And because I was dealing with my own mess. That hit hard. Because it was true. In early 2018, Tiger was just starting to piece his life back together. He wasn't the hero yet. He wasn't the comeback king. He was a man trying to survive. And in survival mode, you don't take on other people's battles. You barely handle your own. Don understood that. More than anyone. Because he'd been there too. The conversation shifted. Don asked Tiger if he thought Vanessa Trump had been working with anyone. If this was part of something bigger. Tiger said he didn't know for sure. But he suspected she wasn't acting alone. The way she moved, the way she positioned herself, it felt orchestrated. Like she was gathering leverage. Not for herself. For someone else. That's when Don revealed something that even Tiger didn't see coming. He told Tiger that after his divorce, he'd hired a private investigator. Not to spy on his ex-wife. But to track the flow of information. to figure out who was feeding the press. And Vanessa Pergolizzi's name came up. Multiple times. Connected to a PR firm that specialized in narrative management. The kind that makes scandals disappear or makes them explode, depending on who's paying. Tiger went quiet. Because that meant this wasn't just gossip. This was business. And if Don was right, Vanessa had been playing a much deeper game than either of them realized. But here's the twist. Don didn't bring Tiger here to expose her. He brought him here to understand why Tiger hadn't. Because in Don's mind, Tiger had a choice. And he chose silence. And that silence, however unintentional, had consequences. Tiger didn't defend himself. He didn't make excuses. He just said, "You're right. I should have told you. I'm sorry." And for a moment, the weight in the room lifted. Not because everything was fixed. But because the truth, however painful, was finally on the table. If someone's honesty ever saved you from spiraling, you know what this moment meant. They talked for another hour. Not about Vanessa. Not about the past. But about what it's like to live in a world where your name is never just your name. Where every move is watched. Every mistake is weaponized. Every relationship is a potential liability. Tiger opened up about the loneliness of his comeback. How even when he won the Masters in 2019, there was a part of him that felt disconnected. Like he was performing a role. Don talked about his kids. About trying to shield them from the noise. About the fear that no matter how much he achieves, they'll always see him through the lens of the headlines. It was the kind of conversation that doesn't happen often. Because it required vulnerability. And in their world, vulnerability is risk. But it also reminded them of something they'd both forgotten. They were human. Flawed. Haunted. But still capable of showing up when it mattered. Before Don left, he told Tiger something that surprised even himself. He said, "I don't blame you. I just needed to hear it from you." Tiger nodded. And for the first time that day, he smiled. Not a PR smile. A real one. So what happened to Vanessa Pergolizzi? As of now, she's still in South Florida. Still connected. Still moving through circles that most people will never access. She hasn't commented on any of this. She probably never will. Because people like her don't need to. They operate in the shadows. And shadows don't require explanations. But here's what changed. Don got his closure. Not the kind that erases the past. But the kind that lets you move forward without carrying the weight of what you don't know. And Tiger? He learned something too. That silence, even when it's not malicious, can still do damage. And that sometimes, the hardest thing to do is not stay quiet, it's to speak up, even when it costs you. This story wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about scandal. It was about two men who'd been through hell in different ways, finding a way to be honest with each other when the rest of the world expected them to pretend. If that resonates, if you've ever had to choose between protecting yourself and telling the truth, stick around. Because stories like this, the ones that don't make the front page, the ones that happen in rooms no one else sees, those are the ones that matter most. Hit subscribe. Not because I asked. But because you understand why stories like this need to be told.